The phrase is believed to have been first popularized in this new context on the Bilibili video platform in early November by a user known as Squid King. In a 5-hour video, he stitched together what he claimed were first-hand encounters of poverty from time he spent in the United States. His video used scenes of children knocking on doors on a cold Halloween night asking for food, delivery workers suffering from hunger because of their meager wages, and injured laborers discharged from hospitals because they could not pay. These are all things that happen every day in America. What are you talking about? You're acting like it's not real. I see it every fucking day. What are you talking about? On Sunday, I saw a barefoot woman walking on the street, visibly pregnant. What are you talking about? This is normal in this country. 40% of U.S. households are teetering at the kill line. That's the reality. That's the truth. And yeah, I'm sorry for yelling. I'm sorry for getting fired up, but I'm angry and I'm ashamed. I'm ashamed that Americans accept this. We could look across the Pacific Ocean at China, a country that was far worse off than we were, but they had a revolution and now they're a world superpower. We're a superpower that's decaying. Our power is being used to fund corporations and the rich. We're invading countries and kidnapping their presidents as 40% of Americans are barely scraping by. Why aren't you yelling? Why aren't you pissed off? What's it gonna take? All right, chat, I want to talk about something. America's kill line is real. Chinese netizens get it right. Okay, we got our New York Times. Why China is suddenly obsessed with American poverty. State media embracing the gaming phrase kill line is asserting China's political superiority over the United States, deflecting focus on China's own economic challenges. By the way, what you're saying they're doing, you're actually doing, New York Times. They're doing a critique of American society and just talking about American society, and you're deflecting it to saying, oh, China's having economic challenges. By the way, China's economic challenges are a faster growth rate than the United States has ever experienced in its history. That's economic challenges. And look at this cartoon. It's a cartoon of someone in China looking out over their clean, prosperous city and watching a YouTube video about American homelessness. And both of these things are real. Do you understand? This is real and so is this. And if you're not mad about that, I don't know what to tell you. Chinese commentators are talking a lot these days about poverty in the United States, claiming China's superiority by appropriating an evocative phrase from video game culture. The phrase kill line is used in gaming to mark the point where the condition of opposing players has so deteriorated that they can be killed by one shot. Now it has become a persistent metaphor in Communist Party propaganda. It's so interesting the way that the New York Times talks about China. Anybody who's saying any political commentary in China is doing Communist Party propaganda. This is a country where CIA-connected billionaires bought up CBS for the purpose of censoring criticism of Donald Trump and Israel. They bought TikTok and they used the government to force China to sell TikTok to propagandist billionaire Zionists in America. And they're criticizing America's precarity, which is a topic that Americans have been talking about, including the New York Times, for over a decade now. The concept that they're calling kill line, we have been calling precarity for decades. Here it is. Here's the New York Times using precarity last month. After the pandemic years of a tight job market and workers getting paid more, the playing field is looking brutal. Precarity stalks the jobs once thought as of safe, and the cutthroat atmosphere affects even those who still have a job. Would you kill for a job? This is what America is. I mean, you literally had less than a month ago, you had an opinion piece. Would you kill for a job? And then you're objecting to the kill line as commie propaganda. What can you even say? Kill line has been used repeatedly on social media and commentary sites, as well as news outlets linked to the state. It has gained traction in China to depict the horror of American poverty, fatal threshold beyond which recovery to a better life becomes impossible. The phrase is used as a metaphor to encompass homelessness, debt, addiction, and economic insecurity. Its official use, the kill line, hovers over the heads of Americans, but is something that Chinese people don't have to fear. That's true. That is true. The depiction of the United States as a place where economic hardship is deep and widespread has been the go-to of official Chinese messaging for years. It's been the go-to of American lived reality. But the use of the kill line phrasing and imagery is new. The power is in its simplicity of what it describes, an abrupt threshold where misery begins and a happy life is irreversibly lost. The narrative is meant to offer China's people emotional relief while attempting to deflect criticism of its leaders. What? What is this editorializing bullshit? The This is not an opinion piece. This is a straight news article. The worse things look across the Pacific, the logic of the propaganda goes, the more tolerable president struggles become. This is just made up. This is just made up. In fact, anybody who is not a hack would be giving examples of this through quotes or examples. Like, this is just bullshit. What the fuck are you talking about? Let's watch a piece of Chinese state media and see if it does
From
that.
the rates of homelessness to the sky-high cost of medical care, stories of financial hardship in the US have gone viral on Chinese social media. Posts like these have gained a lot of traction in China in recent weeks, prompting debates over just how quickly Americans can spiral into poverty.
那个就是诺手的开大，知道吧？就是斩杀线到了。
Many posts use this term, kill line, which originally referred to the point in video games where a character is one hit away from death. Here, it's adapted to mean the point at which families can fall into financial ruin.
There's a term going around. It's called the kill line. The one thing that keeps hitting me is the examples they're giving are like, oh, when you're homeless and living in the sewer. And I'm like, no, it's when you live in the suburbs, you lose your job and your mortgage goes into default.
Most Americans aren't able to have $500 in savings, and these days $500 will not even get you that much. You don't even have to lose your job to lose your house.
But one economist warns that the picture being painted can veer into exaggeration.
Wait, this is the Chinese state media. Wait a minute. I thought they were doing propaganda to tell their people to not demand more.
A lot of what's circulating on Chinese social media is also misframed. There are actually 3 different things we're talking about, and they're kind of all collapsed into a very dramatic narrative. First, there's a real middle-class cost pressure. There's working class financial fragility, and there's also extreme poverty or homelessness. They're very related, but they're not the same thing. And I think that's what gets confused in the media narrative, especially in Chinese social media. Where the discussion gets more interesting and I think fascinating is around what we economists call financial fragility.
Or precarity, as I was describing. I mean, this is the so-called commie propaganda, and it's just accurate reporting.
Especially among the group known as the Alice households. So Alice is asset limited, income constrained, and employed. And these are people working full-time. They earn officially above the poverty line, but they don't have meaningful savings or cushion or buffering.
How many people in the chat are Alice? Asset limited, income constrained, and employed. How many of you are working right now, but you don't have savings and you don't really save much at the end of the month? The New York Times wants you to know, look at all the ones, look at all the me's, look at all the cots. We're looking at thousands of people in this very chat right now on my live stream who are saying this is real and that they're one of those people. And the New York Times is saying it's commie propaganda to bring it up. So nationally, roughly 30 to 40% of U.S. households fall into that category. 40% of U.S. households are teetering at the kill line. That's the reality. That's the truth. And yeah, I'm sorry for yelling. I'm sorry for getting fired up, but I'm angry and I'm ashamed. I'm ashamed that Americans accept this. I'm ashamed that we don't have a revolution. I'm ashamed that we can look across the Pacific Ocean at China, a country that was far worse off than we were under the nationalists and under Japanese occupation. They were one of the poorest countries in the world because they kowtowed to the West. They bowed down to the West. They were the servants of the West and they suffered for it. But they had a revolution and now they're a world superpower. We're a superpower that's decaying. Our power is being used to fund corporations and the rich. We're invading countries and kidnapping their presidents. And we're supporting a genocide in Israel as 40% of Americans are barely scraping by. Why aren't you yelling? Why aren't you pissed off? Now we have ICE agents shooting people dead on the street. What's it gonna take?
So nationally, roughly 30% to 40% of US households fall into the category. And that's
Look at the last 4 messages I just got in my chat. I do have a bit of savings, but I'm still technically paycheck to paycheck and I'm a renter, so I have to give money to a capless owner and one bad health crisis from family ruin. Between vehicle repairs and now health insurance, my savings is now shot. I work full time and could save about $100 a month if I try really hard. I'm going to see a bankruptcy attorney today. Wish me luck for chapter 7. I was telling my life that we are all probably going a bit psychotic because we are constantly under the stress of the kill line, overworked, underrested, and constantly stressed out. out. I pay $160 a month for health insurance, and I get billed $2,500 for my last emergency room video visit. My heart goes out to all of you chatters.
It's pretty stunning for the United States as the #1 developed country in the world.
Lee says these families live paycheck to paycheck, although it does not necessarily mean they're poor. But a single setback such as a medical bill can quickly snowball into long-term financial issues. Globalization and technological advancement in the US has meant the prices of high-quality goods have gone down over the past few decades. But service costs, from healthcare to child and elder care, have only gone up, rising faster than many people's incomes. Yet the kill line rush of posts has inevitably led to comparisons with China's situation. The Chinese government provides for much of the education and healthcare costs in China, which make it a lot cheaper in comparison. But Lee says the risk structure for both countries are very different.
As you know, in the United States, risk is highly individualized, right? This is a system that rewards mobility and initiative, if you will, but also produces sharp downward cliffs when things go wrong. And in China, by contrast, China has much stronger informal and semi-formal buffers, right? So family is one of the primary shock absorbers. And there's also very decent informal intergenerational support, parent helping with housing, grandparents helping with childcare, adult children supporting elderly parents. So that's still very much the norm in a lot of regions in China. And that reduces the likelihood of people falling into absolute destitution. So the downward risk is relatively cushioned in China. For decades, especially in the 1980s through the early 2000s, the United States occupied almost mythic position, if you will, in Chinese imagination, right? This is the land of abundance. This is the land of opportunity. This is the symbol of institutional superiority. Even as China developed very fast, America still remained the benchmark. In reality, as you know, both countries have strength to learn from and also clear limits embedded in their own system. It's what demythologicalization looks like. And I think
Honestly, chat, I think this Chinese state media is too harsh on China. That's my feeling. My feeling is they're being too hard on China. I live in California, and I can honestly tell you homelessness is not an exaggeration. The fact that you can become homeless for having a medical emergency in the USA is insane. I'm in Mexico. Not even here something like that could happen on a regular basis. It's not a coincidence that there's a swell of these messages now. China's economic growth is half what it once was. It's now 5%. It used to be 10%. Now, chat, I don't know if you know what 10% economic growth year over year means, but it's absolutely never been matched in human fucking history. So obviously, as China gets closer and closer to developed status, a lot of the easy, fixes get fixed. And so it becomes more and more difficult to find improvements from the prior year. So the growth naturally starts to bend downward as you get closer to catching up to America. The harder it is to get an incremental growth, right? We call that convergent growth, catch-up growth, meaning countries where they don't have something like an electrical grid. If you install an electrical grid, that's a lot of economic growth that's put into that country, but then you have an electric grid. You don't have that easy, just throw an electric grid in there anymore, right? So China has developed itself very, very rapidly. The growth of the Chinese economy has been faster than any human society in history. From that point, they average 8% per year ever since 1949. That's batshit. America aims for 2%. 2% growth is good. They've had 8%. And for a large period there, it was 10%. So obviously, that's not sustainable. That you're not going to remain 10% growing year every year. That's fucking insane. They caught up. They're catching up very rapidly. So growth is necessarily going to slow down a little bit. But 5% economic growth is huge, which is why they don't say that here. This is how the New York Times is doing propaganda to its liberal audience. They don't say China's economic growth once 10% is now 5%. They say China's economic growth is half as much as it was before because they want to pretend like that growth that they have now is bad. When in the United States of America, if we hit 5% growth, that's a fucking boom. When I was growing up in China in the early 80s, my family subscribed to China's Children News, which ran a weekly column with a simple slogan: socialism is good, capitalism is bad. It describes seniors in American cities scavenging for food and homeless people freezing to death, which are real and happen every day. What are you talking about? Those stories were not invented, but they lacked context. What is the context of that? What's the context of people scavenging for food in dumpsters and starving to death or freezing to death? What's the context? And were presented as the dominant experiences in American society. I don't believe you. We just watched Chinese media and it was even-handed and balanced and honest. What the fuck are you talking about? Much of Chinese society was closed off for the world and reliable information was scarce. That many people accepted such narratives was hardly surprising. What's striking is that similar portrayals continue to resonate today when access to information is relatively much greater despite state control. The formula is very simple. Magnify forward suffering to deflect from domestic problems. That approach is taking shape today around the kill line metaphor. I don't know what else to say to you, chat, then America's elite needs to be purged. And I say that with full knowledge of what I'm saying. I could walk outside and within a minute or two come across half a dozen desperate people with clothes that are literally rotting off their bodies, filthy, begging for food. It would not take me more than 5 minutes. Honestly, like, are you okay? That is not true in China. Period. It's not. Now, yes, China is still a developing country, and there are a lot of people that are poor as far as their income. But are you serious? And if you're an American, you know I'm right. I'm sure it's true in whatever city is nearby you. This is just ridiculous. The phrase is believed to have been first popularized in this new context on the Bilibili video platform in early November by a user known as Squid King. In a 5-hour video, he stitched together what he claimed were first-hand encounters of poverty from time he spent in the United States. His video used scenes of children knocking on doors on a cold Halloween night asking for food, delivery workers suffering from hunger because of their meager wages, and injured laborers discharged from hospitals because they could not pay. These are all things that happen every day in America. What are you talking about? You're acting like it's not real. I see it every fucking day. What are you talking about? On Sunday, I saw a barefoot woman walking on the street, visibly pregnant. What are you talking about? This is normal in this country. Every fucking day. They were on the other side of the highway that I was stopped in gridlocked traffic, so I couldn't do anything. What the fuck are you talking about? The scenes were presented not as isolated cases, but as evidence of a system. These lying scum of the American elite are lying scum. I don't know what else to say. And they have to be suffering consequence. I don't know. I'm so frustrated because they're trying to pretend that this isn't true, and it is fucking true. I see it every goddamn day. And I know if you live in New York City, you see it too. What the fuck are you talking about? You evil sack of shit. The scenes were presented not as isolated cases, but as evidence of a system. I mean, I don't know what to say. I mean, it's unbelievable. I don't know what else to say. It's unbelievable. Above the kill line, life continues. Below it, society stops treating people as human. This is objectively true. Every American knows it. In fact, many Americans might even be in the chat right now telling me that homeless people deserve it, that they're drug addicts, that they want to live out on the street, etc., etc. I mean, what are you talking about? The narrative spread beyond the Squid King video, and many people online repeated his anecdotes. Essays on the nationalist news site Gansha and China's biggest social media platform WeChat described the kill line as the real operating logic of American capitalism, because it is. And if you want to test it, quit your job. See what happens. As soon as those savings runs out, eventually the sheriff will show up and they will dump your ass on the street. Others cited examples of Western journalism that they felt presented the American-China contrast. A Financial Times article published on December 24th about Connecticut's wage gap, affluent Greenwich, struggling Bridgeport, was recast in Chinese media. Even a modest financial shock, such as a missed paycheck, the loss of healthcare benefits, or a sudden expense, can trigger a rapid downward spiral. Another widely circulated example drew on Hillbilly Elegy, the memoir by J.D. Vance. People online highlighted his account of selling plasma while struggling with student debt. It's not even... What are you fucking talking about? Here it is on ABC News 7 years ago. Thousands of low-income Americans donate plasma.
As we traveled across America, we wondered about some people we saw in the shadows of the morning. Every day, 97,000 people will begin to take their place in a line, waiting to have a needle put in their arms for up to 2 hours. This is a transaction for money. There are 500 plasma centers in the U.S., and almost all are foreign-owned. They extract plasma from this blood to make drugs that help treat leukemia and for transplant patients. And these companies have turned the United States into what has been called the OPEC of plasma, American donors providing 94% of the paid plasma used around the world. They are a kind of branded army, not of addicts, but people including full-time workers who are just unable to make ends meet.
Now, is this propaganda from China, or is this a 7-year-old ABC News clip about how America sells 94% of the world's plasma? You fucking scum at the New York Times. And I'm sorry for using expletives. If even a future national leader had to drain his body to stay afloat, Chinese commentaries asked, what chance does an ordinary American have? Chinese commentaries asked? That's what every American asks. That's why when you ask Americans, are we on the right track or the wrong track? 80% of Americans say we're on the wrong track. By late December, the Kill Line framework had gained official momentum. Beijing Daily and Southern Daily, both state-run outlets, launched several hot topics on the Weibo platform that usually help draw wider attention. Gotcha published more than a dozen commentaries in less than 2 weeks, applying the metaphor to American poverty, healthcare, and working conditions. The site later included Kill Line in its roundup of the year's top news, linking critiques of President Trump's first year back in office. Oh, God forbid they criticize God King Trump. I'm not even talking about the street walking, you know? I'm not even talking about the women and girls that are pimped out against their will on the street. I'm not even talking about that. In early January, Q Xi, the Chinese Communist Party's leading theoretical journal, published a commentary addressing the kill line as a structural feature of U.S. capitalism, a term borrowed from gaming culture and entered sanctioned political language. Oh, guys, it's sanctioned political language because it's fucking true. This is why they hate the communists so much, by the way. This is why they hate the communists, because the New York Times, without China, without a competition from socialism, they would put in their paper, it would be nonstop, those people deserve it. They're scum. We should kill them. That's what the New York Times wishes they could write. But with the communists there saying these people are human beings that deserve dignity, they have to pretend like, oh, they're doing propaganda. You hate them for doing propaganda against the precious United States. The communists are criticizing us. Don't you feel national pride? Aren't you mad? Aren't you disgusted by these people? In many of the commentaries, anecdotes about Americans experiencing abrupt financial crises are followed by comparisons with China. Universal basic health care, minimum subsistence guarantees, and poverty alleviation campaigns are cited as evidence that China does not permit anyone to fall into sudden distress. China's system will not allow a person to be killed by a single misfortune, one commentary from a provincial propaganda department states. Many readers express shock at American poverty and gratitude for China's system. At least we have a safety net, said one commenter.